Here we go. Hey, Alex Van Tol.
Morning, Ian Chisholm. How are you?
How it's very official. Our conversation today is going to be the third in a little series of videos, just kind of behind the scenes of the book. In our first episode, we just talked about the topic and why I wanted to write a book about mentorship. In the second episode, I forget what we talked about. Terrible.
You don't have anything going on in your world at all. You're supposed to remember all the things.
I can't even imagine. Anyway, this third episode, we wanted to be very honest with people that when a person decides to write a book, there's a huge how. Regardless of what you want to write about, writing a book is a huge how. And instead of a how, I found a who. Who was you? And uh, yeah, it feels like we got started a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we did years back. Books are long, long projects, aren't they?
You and I met in 2018, and that was kind of through Douglas Magazine, where you were a writer.
Yeah.
And that then led to a number of years of talking about a book, I think. Maybe doing a few writing projects together. You certainly understood the voice of Roy Group because you helped us out with a number of projects. But 2021, we started in earnest. We've had a big week in that Page Two Publishing just sent me a special little file, and I wanted to show it to you.
Okay. I want to see the special file.
You ready for this?
Yes.
There it is. There's the
Oh,
cover of our book.
oh my goodness. Let me just have a minute here.
Yeah,
Quiet. Oh, it's so great. Wow. Okay. Do you want to give me the legend, the map?
sure. Um, like title, you will remember when we first started, the name of the book was Mentor's Way. And then the more that we dug into that, we realized that Mentor's Way didn't actually work because his relationship with Telemachus in the Odyssey didn't really find its form until Athena got involved. So then, for a long time, the working title was Athena's Way.
Right.
We definitely took that to Page Two Publishing, and there was a lot of really great conversations about the mystery of Athena's Way. Would people know what this was about? And ultimately, the answer was no. It might be confusing. So that was a hard moment for me because I'd been carrying this thing around as Athena's Way.
Yeah.
And one of the editors, Emily, in New York, had picked out a line out of the book about it was something about an act of quiet championing, and she really thought that maybe that was the right handle.
Yeah.
And I think I sat with it for about 2 seconds, and I was like, "Yeah, that describes exactly the kind of approach we're talking about." So there it was.
Absolutely excellent. And often that happens. Like sometimes a book's title will be right in the book itself. I was just reading, I don't remember what I was reading the other day, but oh, it was American Pastoral by Philip Roth. And it's such an interesting title. Like it won the Pulitzer. And I was like, American Pastoral, what's that all about? And by the time I hit that phrase in the book, I understood what it meant. And I was like, oh, there's an example of exactly what you're talking about. You know, a great title coming out of a concept that you've written about.
And we still kept Athena, so that's the graphic.
Yeah.
And early on in the book, it just talks about how Athena was kind of the original quiet champion.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
of course, she served as a bit of a muse for our research to say, what what is it that Athena had that made it helpful? And what is it about what Mentor did that was unhelpful? And that kind of teed up how we tried to research what is the Athena signature that we can use today to become better mentors. So
And is that Athena?
features in the book, just not the title.
Is that Athena then on the cover in the helmet?
Yeah, that's her. The olive branch, the owl rather, and that very distinct helmet are all features that a classicist would be able to recognize this as Athena.
I love it. Yeah, and she came through.
And
Re-
the last feature, I guess, was then the color.
Mm.
So we did look at. I think our first guess was like Roy Group Red,
Mhm.
and that title, that cover was pretty compelling. There was a black version that looked very Game of Thrones,
Ooh.
which a lot of people loved. A lot of people equate bright red covers for books about leadership, and I thought that was interesting. We did a little bit more digging with the options and found out that in ancient Greece, red was undeniably the color of Sparta
Mm.
and like the warrior class, and no big surprise that it's used for books about leadership. And we just wondered, I wonder if we should be true to a color that's more related to Athens, named after Athena, and also this idea of maybe mentorship is a little bit of a cooler color.
Yeah.
Not so in the mix of it. It's kind of a little step back and maybe a source of something a little bit more peaceful that people can come to. Anyway, a lot of thought about the color, the picture, the title, the subtitle. The only thing we knew for sure was my name. And there it is.
Yeah, it's great. And I like the blue. It is calming and it is dignified.
Nice. Revealed for you.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy. And I couldn't be happier with the title. I think it's fantastic.
Nice. Alex, I'm really keen that anybody watching this would kind of understand your story a bit. And for me, as a friend, it got very, very exciting when you were able to take your understanding and your experience from the world of books and combine that with the discipline of coaching. And I'd love to kind of, in your words, just hear more about how that all happened.
Yeah. It feels like, when you look back, you can kind of see all the pieces of your quilt
Oh,
stitching together and making a pattern that makes sense. So it makes sense that, I've landed in this space of helping other people bring their books into across the veil, is what I say.
cool.
Because I started out years back, writing books, wanting to be an author, and that took quite a long time. And then in 2010, I published my first book, published a bunch more, didn't know anything about book coaching, was making my living as a writer. And then the pandemic came and just shuffled all the pieces on the board. And I've been talking with you about your book, working with another client, sort of helping her put her book together. And I realized this is a space where I'm familiar, I'm super interested. I really like working with people to improve their writing for sure, but also bring get their ideas more clear and uh, resonant. A book is a really big challenge. Um, so it's a constant learning curve. Yes, I'm a book coach. I will never stop learning and stop mastering this special craft, I guess. So yeah, it's been, a 25-year journey with words, longer if I go back into my, growing up years. But it's been a 25-year journey and I feel really happy here because it allows me to use my gift and have really great relationships with people who are bringing excellent messages into the world, like Quiet Champions.
Um, Alex, I think I first appreciated like maybe it was even like on your business card. the world of books, so aside from coaching, I want to talk about that too, but the world of books, it was like a background in publishing, an understanding of editing. I think you also offer the services of ghostwriting, but are doing that less. And you were very clear that that wasn't on offer for this book, that you were going to make me grind it out. There were many times where I just wanted you to finish it and like get this done, but you didn't do that. There's a lot of different facets of the book side of book coaching, in addition to the fact that publishing is an industry that's going through like crazy changes. On the book side of things, I'm interested in how you've been able to bring that all together.
Yeah, publishing is such an interesting industry. There's really no analog out there because it mixes product and art. You know, I mean, I suppose maybe television and film is sort of connected, that they function similarly, but it's constantly changing. And it changes in response to consumer preference. Changes in response to what sells. It changes in response to the cost of paper, so you kind of always have to be on your toes. What doesn't change is the value of stories for people as a way of passing information, as a way of inspiring, as a way of, educating, collecting thought. So that's the persistent thing. That's the persistent hub around which all this maelstrom of change and, strange rules and, yeah, it takes a lot to sort of stay connected to what's happening in the industry, to stay connected to what's happening inside a writer, to stay connected with what's happening inside a book, and sort of shepherd that whole thing. You're shepherding a whole project down this very long runway. You know how long this project is. And anything can change in the industry, until you get to the end point. So, I mean, I always say there are no guarantees in publishing of anything, but the persistence of story is what will keep the industry itself persistent.
It was a piece of the process that I had no idea about, that there would be some big decisions once we crafted the pitch and the proposal, and I think there were some other pieces too. But then there was this fork in the road between traditional publishing, finding an agent. We pursued that for a while, had some fantastic conversations with a wonderful guy named Michael Levine, who also added to the mix and gave us some advice. We thought about self-publishing, and then we landed on something called hybrid publishing, which I didn't even know about before, which seemed to be the right road. In retrospect, I'm interested in what your thoughts are about that, this final choice we made to go with Page Two.
Feels great. I mean, first of all, Page Two Publishing is just so reputable. Even, the doyen of everything literary, Jane Friedman, will speak of Page Two. Like, they always make the cut in her recommended hybrid publishers. So they were a fantastic place to land. Those three choices, self-publishing, traditional publishing, hybrid publishing, all carry different sort of levels of responsibility for the writer, different levels of financial commitment for the writer. And the traditional publishing road is the longest. Right. And I think, you knew the importance of this information and these messages that you wanted to give to people. And I knew the importance and sort of the idea of waiting in queue for, to find an agent.
Right.
And then for that agent to shop around and sell the book. So that can take, I've been working with one writer whose agent has had their book for more than a year. Oh. So it's not even in the pipeline yet, right? And then once it's in the pipeline, it's usually a couple of years until the book will hit the shelf. So, and that wasn't that everybody needs this information now that's in Quiet Champions. So it feels like the hybrid route, I kind of had a sense that we would go there. Yeah. And I'm so glad that, the lovely thing about a hybrid publisher, because very few people actually understand how anything really works. But the lovely thing about a hybrid is that generally everybody in that organization has come from traditional publishing in some way. So they're all very experienced with the process, with the production, with marketing. And so you get this collection of experts, but the business model is so different. They can really have much more leeway over creative expression because the writer's assuming some of the risk by fronting the money for these certain parts of the project. So it's not like we used to call it vanity publishing back in the day. That's not what it is. It's traditional publishing, but you as the writer are assuming a portion of the risk so that you can kind of expedite the book to the market, and so that you can kind of, both sides can kind of take a few more risks because you kind of are, it's a more of a collaborative project.
Right.
So hybrids are absolutely great. And what's interesting, just one more thing, what's interesting is the bar has really traditionally been very high for getting your book traditionally published. Hybrids for a long time were kind of like, oh, it's a little bit easier to get the puck in the net for a hybrid. That's not necessarily the case now. You really have to make a pitch that's as compelling as you would if you were trying to land it with a traditional publisher or with an agent. So their standards are going up as well because more people want to publish.
Page two has been wonderful. I want to definitely make sure we get a few of their key folks on one of these little episodes, just so that people can understand how good they are at what they do.
Yeah.
I was really surprised with the outline as part of your process.
Mm.
Like we worked for a long time on the outline before you kind of let me out of the gates to go be a writer.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in retrospect about that. I mean, I think the outline for this was 47 pages or something. There were times when I was like, oh my gosh, why are we pouring so many hours into this? But in retrospect, I have some ideas of why it was so valuable. But I'm interested in the method you use. There's obviously a big belief in that outline as one of the first products.
Yeah. And that full outline that you're talking about is what we call the blueprint. And that's Jenny Nash's invention from years of book coaching and working with authors. And it's a sequence of 14 steps that all interconnect, and they're all really important for building that foundational framework. That's why it's called a blueprint. And it's very much, a really good analog is building a house or building a building. You absolutely need to have the foundation properly poured. You need to have the framing done properly, the joists, the studs. If you don't have that, your house is not going to stand well. And it's exactly the same for a book. If a lot of people just hit the page and start writing. That's kind of like picking your flat piece of ground and picking up boards and starting to nail the boards together. And you get to a point. Very often, a writer will get to a point where they get absolutely stuck and they don't know how to fix the stuck, right, because they don't have a pathway back to what they needed in place to support before. So the blueprint is a lot of work. It's very iterative. You did a lot of changes, a lot of passes. We spent a number of months even just hammering that out. But the reward for all that thinking is a really good narrative arc that the reader follows all the way through, and it creates this really satisfying, cohesive whole that you would not get if you just started shooting from the hip.
You were very clear that you wanted the outline to be done before I went on my writing sabbatical in 2023. So, I mean, I left with my itinerary for my sabbatical and my outline. Um, I think we're going to do an episode about the sabbatical just because that was a thing of itself. But what I found as a brand new author um, was that blueprint almost sketched out a paint by numbers thing. And it meant that when I went away to write, I could really write whatever chapter I felt like writing because I knew what would come before it and what would come after it and what that chapter or even that section needed to nail to the wall. And in retrospect, I know I was a terrible, terrible client when it came to the blueprint, but in retrospect, I'm super thankful of you and your method and that blueprint because I think I would have been one of those people that just wrote myself into outer space and then really not able to kind of bring it back down and even know what this book was going to be about. So, yeah.
Yeah, the blueprint is good to contain information. There's always so many choices about, you have to choose because you've got all this information that you want to share with people.
Yeah.
And a book will only let you share this much. So you really have to choose what are those pieces.
And the readers at a certain place, when they pick up this book, when they start chapter 1, when they start chapter 2, because of that's what the blueprint really locked in is all of these steps, these interviews of asking me to write down where is the reader when they begin this chapter and where do you want them to get to as the next step of the journey.
Right.
Speaking of journey, I want to switch from the book side of this equation to the coaching side of this equation. Because I don't know when you started your journey as a coaching practitioner, but I have to say, like, the coaching was so good beyond the book. It's such a process. I got my own way. You had so many different tactics to help me get out of my own way. I was telling somebody a few weeks ago that it felt like for the first month, I was working on the book. And then after that, the book worked on me. And you were like a huge part of that every week with the conversation about what I'd been able to accomplish or not accomplish, which was often. What was getting in the way? What did I need to do to kind of get back on track? Anyway, super thankful, Alex, for your patience and your insights and your great questions to just help me. This book wouldn't be around if it wasn't for you and your ability to really coach me as a person.
Great. Yeah. Well, and I say that writing a book is an integrity move. Even fiction, and when I say integrity, I'm talking about holding to what you mean, holding to the reason you're putting the book into the world, and holding to the point you're making. And writing a book is a very serious endeavor because you are putting something into the world that you need to stand behind. So what was lovely about working with you, many things were lovely about working with you, but you had been swimming in this information, this knowledge, this pulsing desire to get this message out to the world. And you were very consistent with your message. You knew it really clearly. You just needed to have it placed into that sort of paint by numbers. But even then, there were moments where, I would ask you a question, I'd write you some feedback, and I'd really push you.
Right.
Like, what about this? What about this? Can you stand in what you're saying? And you would go back and you would be like, okay. And it would sort of refine your thinking. Your basic tenets didn't shift, which was great because I've worked with people who are like, oh my God, I got to go think about this a little bit more. So you weren't there, but you were like, oh, I have to really think about I have one shot to get this into people's hearts. And how do I do that? What's the best way? So that's that piece about, it is an integrity move because it's something you're putting into the marketplace with your name on it. It's really connected to a person's reputation and their ability to be seen as as somebody who's a good guide, essentially. So yeah, it's a lot of questioning and just making sure that you, not just that you know what you're talking about, but that you actually really believe in what you're putting out there. So it's a bigger emotional load than a lot of people think in the beginning.
Right. I'm excited about November. I'm excited to put a copy of this book in your hand because really you kind of, once we secured page two as a publisher, there was this, I was not expecting this. I thought you would be with me through the whole process, but there was almost like this, no, it's time to go to summer camp now. And you dropped me off at the front gate and I had my little backpack and I walked into the world of publishing, but you had done your job. I'm super thankful about that. I I've got a few funny memories, but I'm interested if you have any like we laughed quite a lot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of one. I had written a paragraph that was really pretty angry. Like it was angry chiz. There was a few patterns in the world that I wanted to take a real run at, and I don't know what kind of a mood I was when I wrote that. And you were so funny at being like, okay, this is pretty hot. This is some strong. This is a strong sentiment you've laid down here. And you just kind of let me come back to it a few times to see if it's actually something that I wanted to put out there. And eventually I did. But I seem to remember laughing a lot with you about every once in a while when Angry Chiz wanted to be an author. What about you? Best memory, funniest memory, the thing that stands out the most?
Well, I mean, I did love the moments where we would be calling each other from our cars, or somebody's not able to hook in with Wi-Fi in the coffee shop, so they're having the conversation outside in the car, like just those things on the go. But probably, one of the most enjoyable memories I have is it connects to what you were saying about, writing that sort of red hot piece. There were times when I knew you had more to express than maybe the book could hold. There was deeper stuff for you. And so you would go off and do like a free write, and I invited you once and I said, I want you just to write about all of that as though you're just journaling it in your own notebook and write the truth of what you really wish could be the thing. And that it was like I think those moments, and you did a number of those, like I think you did 6 or 7 big free writes like that, and they really helped, I think, sort of release some of the pressure of just sort of holding stuff that was really intense. And it also helped you refine what you actually did want to put in the book. So those, I really loved those free writes.
And that's not part of the method. That was you being a really great coach and helping me get out of my own way.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
you did a great job, Alex. I'm so thankful. Again, this book wouldn't exist without you and the service you provided me. For anyone who is a budding author or this is the first time they're like dabbling with this idea, if there's a book in you, I would just give such a strong reference that they seek you out and engage you properly, to use your method and to have access to you. Otherwise, I think I would have given up. So thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you. That the words mean a huge amount to me. And it was really through working with you on your book that I knew that I was like, yeah, no, this is exactly where I now want to be
So
putting
good.
energy. Yeah.
You're so good. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay.
All
Good
right.
luck with all of it.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao.